will be opening the session. I'd also request our uh, esteemed guest, Nithin Sridhar ji, to also please be on the camera. We'll start with a little prayer, offering our salutations to the Gurus that we always do. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Namaha to all of you. Today is a very special day, and on this very special day of Ambubachi festival start, we have organized this very special session, a very wonderful talk by our esteemed guest, Shri Nithin Sridhar ji. I will introduce him briefly, and I'll also take you through on how we will go through the session. And after that, I will request Nitinji to please um, take the stage. So please allow me to introduce our special guest for today, Nitin Sridhar ji. He introduces himself as a practicing Hindu, an author, and a director at Indica Moksha. Indica Center for Moksha Studies was previously at Veda Academy, which is dedicated to the dissemination of Advaita Vedanta. Nitinji has authored 7 books and one book chapter on various aspects of Hindu culture and practice. His first book, Musings on Hinduism, provided an overview of various aspects of Hindu philosophy and society. His book, Samanya Dharma, enunciates upon general tenets of ethics as available in Hindu texts. His latest book, Ishopanishad, an English commentary, is an English translation and commentary on one of the prominent Hindu texts. However, his most widely read book is Menstruation Across Cultures, a historical perspective, which examines menstruation notions and practices prevalent in different cultures and religions from across the world. His new book, titled Chatushloki Manusmriti, is a commentary, is a very special book on the opening verses of Manusmriti and provides a gateway to understand the purpose, relevance, and subject matter of Dharma Shastras. He teaches courses on Hinduism for Indica courses and regularly contributes articles and delivers lectures on religion, spirituality, and culture at various platforms. And he tweets at the rate NKG Talk. Very warm welcome to you, Nitinji. Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are very delighted that you are able to join us today on this very special day where at Ma Kamakya Shaktipeeth in Assam, the annual festival of Ambubachi starts, where the Devi is set to start menstruating, or basically she goes through the Rajaswala period for 3 days. And that is the reason it can be no better opportunity for us to actually talk about, if we call it so, the Hindu perspective on menstruation. And I will just very quickly also add a point here that Rajaswala Paricharya, as it is called, which is a very special routine which is prescribed in Ayurveda, completely scientific and a very holistic, very logical routine which has been provided for ladies, is something that we are working on very, very closely. We also have offered it in form of a course where all those do's and don'ts, the things which are supposed to be done or not done by a lady, by a woman when she's menstruating, are mentioned in great detail. And along with that, what are the scientific reasons behind that? What are actually the logics behind doing or not doing something? Especially from an Ayurveda, from a complete bodily science perspective, life sciences perspective, and a very important aspect which is around the taboos. So there are certain things which have been misunderstood. That is why they have become taboos, and there are certain things which are because the reasons or the scientific explanations for behind them have not been explained or passed on properly. They rather look like a taboo in modern times. So on that, among the very few and the initial literatures which were introduced was Nitin Sridharji's book, which was Menstruation Across Cultures. And that has actually brought in a lot many people into the perspective that when what we call the Hindu practices, especially around menstruation or Rajaswala Paricharya, what are the details behind them, and at the same time explaining it not from a blind faith perspective, but on a very, very logical and reasonable platform. So for that, and in fact, there's something that Nitinji, I would also request you for the last 2 days. I do not know if you have come across that. there is a very prominent social group which work on very amazing, beautiful social causes. They have kind of released a kind of a comic strip where there is a dadi and there is a granddaughter who's present, and she's asking about certain taboos, and she's basically asking her to shoo away all of those things which have been kind of followed as practices, and say, yo, you know what, all those were things done because there were certain limitations. So this is the kind of a dilemma which I would say a lot of Hindu parents also face these days, that the what we call our traditional practices, not the taboo based practices, but the actual practices which are very much rooted in our parampara, have, how to ensure that, how do we table it to our children, how do we make our girls understand what are the things and reasonings behind them, and then how to ensure that they kind of happily and reason, with a lot of reason, they accept it and they start following it, because that is something for their own good. And the very specific reason that we chose Ambubachi festival to be the reason is because the flow of energy inside the body goes through a change at this point in time, where the energy actually flows from inwards to outwards and from top to bottom. Two things which are basically, from an adhyatma and from an agama perspective, also have a very important role to play. So with that, I would, with like an open question slash platform, I would request you, Nitinji, to please take on the stage and tell us that how is it that we are supposed to understand it in detail, especially giving references from a Hindu perspective. Towards the end of your, once you share your wisdom with us, towards the end of the session, we will open it for question answers. And in case there are participants who have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. The session is about for about 1.5 hours, 90 minutes. We might go a little overboard. It depends on kind of questions and responses we have. But that is something we would request everyone. In case you have any questions while Nitin ji is sharing details, if you can park those questions, or you can put them in the chat box. Towards the end, when we do the Q&A session, we would, whichever are the questions or whoever raises hands, we will invite them over to ask their questions, and then we'll request Nitin ji to answer. So I hope that is something which everyone would be able to see and be comfortable on their screens. So with that, I request you, Nitinji, please come and share your wisdom with us.
Thank you very much, Mishraji, for this invitation. I'm very, very glad to be here and glad to share whatever little from my own research and interaction with others. Let me begin with a prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhatrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Svada Namostute Bharati Karuna Patram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudham Bharati Pitamashre Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvagyam Vidashekara Bharati Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Shri Kamakhya Devye Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Kalika Parameshwarye Namaha. Once again, I'm very glad to be here. This is a very important topic. Let me first share my screen. So the topic for the discussion today is menstruation and womanhood, a Hindu perspective. And as Anshuji already told you, my book, Menstruation Across Cultures, a Historical Perspective, it was published in 2018. And the journey of the book began with the Sabrimala controversy. And while I was studying that controversy, I realized that there is a deeper issue, which is about menstruation. What is the contemporary discourse on menstruation in particular, but connected to Hinduism? What is the contemporary discourse about Hindu views of menstruation? Anshuji gave some example, just a recent, yesterday, day before yesterday, example about a meme, uh, wherein all our traditional practices were branded as outdated. But this is not something new. This have been uh, being done for the last 200 years. There has been a sustained propaganda, a negative discourse around many of the Hindu practices, making them, branding them as outdated, as regressive practices that needs to be discarded, society reformed. So one such problematic area, as per the contemporary discourse, is the Hindu beliefs and practices, the Hindu knowledge or Hindu uh, ideas surrounding menstruation. So the the gist of the most discourse, you take scientific literature, modern medical literature, or in the movies or in YouTube videos. See all these myth busting videos in YouTube on menstruation with over 1 million views. See, all of them basically say that Hinduism degrades women by considering menstruating women as impure, and thus it is oppressive towards women. Therefore, and these are very outdated ideas. We are living in 21st century, so we have to understand the scientifically we have to understand menstruation, that it is merely a biological process. So we have to discard all cultural taboos, all primitive and superstitious practices. So this is the basic understanding. So there is this illustration is an example from 2019. So this is pretty much similar to what Anjuji shared about the meme from yesterday, which unfortunately I have not come across. But this is also equally, instructive. So the U.S. Embassy of Nepal in 2019, to wish the Hindus there for a festival, Tihar and Chet Puja and other festivals. So they put out this flyer on their Twitter, now X, saying that Dashain, which is worship of Durga, they say that this Dashain, while worshipping one Durga inside your house, make sure you are not sending another Durga outside because she is menstruating. Wish you and your family a menstruation restriction-free Dashain, Tihar, and Chat Parba. Now, you see, if anybody who reads it from a uh, from a perspective, from a standpoint of one who doesn't know anything about Hindu practice per se, except what appears to the eye, then they will say that yes, this makes sense. If festival is something that is to be celebrated together, then how can a child, a girl, or your wife or your daughter, somebody who is kept away from this uh, get together, this family get together, this celebration, simply because she is having her periods. So this is a very the it has been presented in the discourse in such a way that this appears to us as very logical, that as a very common sense, that what is a big issue? Isn't Durga Ma also a woman? How can we insult the woman at our home and then say we worship them? So this is the kind of narrative. A few years ago, I had watched a documentary kind of. It's not a documentary. It was actually a so-called awareness kind of video that was made on YouTube, wherein it was full of stereotypes. So there was a courtroom, and the wife was the victim. The husband was stood accused there. It's a Hindu setup. The family was a Hindu, and the husband was accused of oppressing his wife, discriminating his wife because of her periods. He was told that the whole narrative is shown as if the husband was forcibly making the woman, the wife, to stay away from the family to seclude herself during her menstruation, and all kinds of arguments were weaved into that video. So basically, uh, all of this boils down to simply this, that uh, be it reading the academic literature or reading the popular portrayals, even in movies, we have this movies such as Padman and other movies which are supposed to have brought a lot of awareness about menstruation, mainstreamed views, mainstreamed, removed the shyness and shame and taboo associated with menstruation. But the fact is, all this media and social media, the memes, the movies, everywhere, they have created a very, very negative discourse regarding Hindu menstruation practices. Many modern urban Hindu parents subscribe to this negative views, partly because when they were young, especially the Hindu mothers, when they were young, their mothers probably did not explain to them the whys, only the do's and don'ts. So we are living in a time, but the fact is, it could be even in the past, any practice that is passed on without a convincing explanation. See, that explanation need not be scientific in the sense of need not be related to something that can be established in a laboratory through empirical methods. No, but the explanation has to be meaningful. The explanation, the rational, has to appeal to the mind and the heart of the person, and it has to be meaningful, right? Because not all truths are empirically verifiable, not all knowledge is empirical. So if we say that I am a Hindu, then that means that we are subscribing to things that are beyond physical. There is a metaphysical element involved. So, purely from a philosophical perspective, when you speak about dharma and moksha, they are not empirical, right? When we speak about Bhagavan, it is not empirical. So, similarly, see, these dharmic practices, these menstruation related practices, are also non empirical. But unfortunately, there is a great uh, push in our school system, in our education system, in the name of scientific temper. See, there is nothing wrong with scientific temper per se or engaging with science. See, science has its own values. The scientific methods has their validity within their paradigm. But the problem is to consider the scientific paradigm as the universal paradigm. So the contemporary scientific paradigm is basically a materialistic paradigm. It is basically empiricist paradigm, a paradigm wherein which accepts only the pratyaksha pramana and anumana pramana, which is connected to pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means direct perception, and anumana means inference, logical inference. Now, when it comes to Hindu philosophy, Hindu knowledge system, the Indian knowledge systems, we have an understanding of 6 pramanas: pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, anupalapti, shabda, etc. So, wherein the shabda, either the shastra pramana, the of the Vedas and other shastras, or Shastra, or the word or the Shabda of a Apta, a trustworthy source, a trustworthy text, a trustworthy person such as a Guru or Acharya, is also considered as a valid means of knowledge. And it is through this Shabda Pramana that the non-empirical truths, so non-empirical ideas, non-empirical knowledge such as Dharma, Adharma, Moksha, Swarga, Naraka, Papa, Punya, Karma. See, the whole Hindu theological, metaphysical knowledge through our Vedas, Itihasa, Puranas, Smritis, etc., are they are the means to know this knowledge. That is, they are the Shabda Pramana through which we know the knowledge. But this is completely removed. especially in our education system, wherein the children are day in and day out drilled that scientific paradigm is the only paradigm. The scientific methods of verification and falsification are the only way to know that. So what happens when young children, especially young girls, grow up in such a narrative, such an environment wherein uh, they are drilled that you see scientific paradigm is the only universal paradigm, and everything else that cannot be verified through using scientific methods is essentially not even considered. It cannot be considered as knowledge. It cannot be considered as information. In fact, it is not even considered as something that may be true, even though beyond the methods of science. No, it is straight away said that it does not have the it does not fit into the definition of truth itself. They are to be rejected as superstitious, as outdated beliefs, as unscientific beliefs. You see how this narrative, we often don't realize uh, the, the negative side aspects of this kind of narrative. So when young girls are growing up in such a negative discourse, so this is in general about Hinduism, but also it applies equally to the menstruation issue. The direct result of all this is that Hindu kids grow up to be more and more alienated from Hindu culture and religion, which they increasingly perceive as outdated, superstitious, unscientific, and to be discarded. So obviously, uh, you know, uh, this being the case, the menstruation related practices are also considered unscientific, superstitious, and outdated. A part of the problem, a big chunk of the problem is, of course, the ignorance on parts on the part of the Hindus, especially the Hindu adults, the parents, and others in the family, who themselves are not aware about the rationale behind menstruation practices, the utility, the medical utility, the spiritual necessity, the theological basis of all these practices. Therefore, they're unable to make sense of these practices in their own individual lives and unable to articulate these two practices into their future generations. So the questions are just, why should I not enter puja room during menstruation? Why should I not visit temple during menstruation? Why should I not cook food for others during menstruation? See, all such questions. What is this big issue about so-called ritual impurity? What is ritual impurity? See, all these questions remain unanswered, and so in the minds of in the young minds, being unanswered means as good as saying they do not have answers, as good as saying that these are meaningless superstitions. So, in this address, I'm sure many of you who have taken courses with Brahma Varchas may be familiar with some concepts that I'll be dealing with, especially about Ayurveda. But my major focus would be to give a bird's eye view, especially from the Dharmashastra perspective, from the Shabda Pramana perspective, and I hope especially the Hindu parents, the Hindu adults, as well as Hindu teenagers and others who may be listening to this either live or later, they would be benefited from this. Without then, with this brief introduction, let us move further. Uh, we all know that menstruation is a natural biological process, and this is not something that modern science has suddenly told us. So, because if you have to believe all this, even the academic work and all, uh, they all portray it as if uh, before the recent discoveries and recent advancement of science, nobody knew that menstruation is a biological process. So that is actually laughable, right? So menstruation is a natural process, natural biological process that women undergo for major part of their lives. This everybody knows it. Men, women, everybody know it. In many essence, And this understanding that it is a biological process, it is a process that all women go through for major part of their life. It is a process which has deep influence on their psychology, on their everyday living, on their identity. And because menstruation has a very close relationship to fertility and motherhood, see, the ability to bear child is something which is unique to women. It is something, therefore, a part which defines womanhood. So the menstruation, the fertility, the motherhood, all these are associated with women. Now, a feminist will say that women are not baby producing machine. Of course, they are not. Just as men are also not, semen giving machines, right? If you have to put it crassly in that language. But the fact is, being a father, being a mother, they are both. A man cannot be a mother and a woman cannot be a father. I mean, we may fantasize that we are living in a time that whatever I think I am, then I am like that. But that is not a fact, right? So a man can only be a man. A man can be a father, a son, a husband. A woman can be a mother, a wife, a daughter. So these are, you can say, functional aspects of our identity. But it is much more, especially in case of women also, but even in the case of men also, that they are all part of, they are very, very intimately linked to our identity because they are part of our biology. They are part of how our body functions, how our body is designed, how our psychology is designed. How a man is different from a woman, or a woman is different from a man at many levels, bodily, but psychologically, emotionally, IQ, EQ, everything. So this menstruation is also one of the important factors determining this womanhood. Therefore, menstruation has always played an important role in across the world, in various societies, various cultures, especially in matters of how the societies, how the culture. See, when we speak about society, it's not just the men of the society, but the whole, how the whole society, including women of the society, have seen themselves, how they have seen the man-woman relationship, the role of the women in society as a whole, both by the men of the society, but also by the women of the society. So, if you read my book, Menstruation Across Cultures, you will see the study of various cultures, the ancient civilizations, even the tribal communities in North America, Southern America, everywhere you will see how important menstruation was uh, in women's self-perception, women's identity, her self-perception of her own role in socio-religious cultural life. So that means, though menstruation is definitely a biological process, because it is such an intimate biological process, it is very much central to women's identity, her self-perception of who she is, what is her role in society, her self-perception as well as perception of the rest of the society, and the man-woman relationship in the larger socio-cultural relationship. Indian cultural, the Hindu religious and cultural traditions especially, situate menstruation within, therefore, the larger canvas of Stri Dharma, larger canvas of Dharma, and within Dharma we have the Stri Dharma. So within this Stri Dharma, these menstruation related beliefs, practices, the truths, the knowledge, so all has to be understood. They have been anchored within this Stri Dharma, and they have been enunciated upon deeply, how it this anchoring within Stri Dharma has shaped the femininity and womanhood, the notion of self of women in Hindu culture and Indian landscape. Now, just a bit more about what does it mean to say that we are locating menstruation in the conceptual framework of Stri Dharma. So what is Dharma? To define it in a very simple manner, Dharayate iti Dharma. Dharma is that which upholds, sustains, that which gives meaning, that which gives overall well-being. So, in this context, in the context of humans, individuals, dharma refers to actions, our lifestyle choices. Those buckets of action which have been designated as dharma are those which help an individual, facilitate an individual. When an individual performs it, it ensures, due to the performance of those actions, the individual is led to attainment of Abhyudaya and Nishrayasa. So this is a definition from Vaisheshika Sutra. Abhyudaya Nishrayasa Siddhi sa dharma. Abhyudaya means material welfare, overall well-being, attainment of happiness in this world. It could be, fulfillment of arthakama, the material prosperity, the material desires. But it also refers to sukha, happiness, swarga, attainment of heaven after the death of the body, better next life. Nishrayasa refers to moksha, the attainment of ultimate knowledge about the world, attainment of permanent state of happiness without a trace of sorrow, the attainment of Bhagavan, however you define moksha, that is Nishrayasa. And practice of dharma leads one to, imparts one chitta shuddhi, that is purification of the mind, removes the mental impurities such as anger, uh, desire, anger, kama, krodha, mada, lobha, jealousy, and all those things, thereby purifying the mind. So when the mind becomes purified, then such a mind is capable to attain knowledge of the self. And through knowledge of the self, one becomes spiritually liberated or moksha. So therefore, dharma by definition refers to all those actions. And how do we know what actions leads to sukha and swarga and moksha, etc., and what do not? Actions do not tell us themselves. We cannot simply judge it with our eyes, with our ears, the pratyaksha pramana. It cannot be proved in a laboratory mechanism. So the only way we know this is through the Shabda Pramana, the Shastra Pramana. The Veda, the Smriti, Itihasa, Purana, these are our sources which tell us these actions leads to these results. So in the Vedas we have a statement, Swarga Kama Yajeta. If you desire to attain heaven, then do this yajna. Similarly, there are other statements in other texts. If you want to attain moksha, then approach a teacher, listen to the teachings about the highest reality, and do reflection upon it, meditate upon it. So all these things are taught in our text, and very different methods of dharma and adhyatma are given. The karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. So we won't go there. But the point is simply that dharma by definition simply means is a means. Dharma refers to those actions which are the means to attain overall well-being, material and spiritual well-being. So then what is Stri Dharma? Stri is then a descriptive of dharma. Dharma concerning women is Stri Dharma. Or dharma or the duties and lifestyle paricharya that have been indicated for women as the path that leads to overall well-being is Stri Dharma. Or if put it in a different manner, Stri Dharma or that Dharma or those duties and lifestyles which are rooted, anchored in the Stritva of a person, of a woman. That is, which is rooted in her womanhood. What makes her Stri? It caters to that element of Stri of a person. See, ultimately, when we from a Hindu perspective, we are all Jivatmas. So as a Jivatma, we do not have any gender. Only when this Atma identifies itself with the body and takes birth through this in the physical world, then we get this gender of man and a woman. But underneath this gender identities, we are Atma. Therefore, though as an Atma, we are all same, we are all Jivatmas. Nevertheless, because we are living in the world as a physical beings, as a biological beings, as a psychological beings, then we have taken upon certain definitions, certain limitations, certain form. And one such uh, designation, one such factor that we have the Jivatma takes upon itself is the is the gender difference. There is Pumsatva, then there is Stritva. So there is the Pumsatva is the the male, the malehood, the femalehood, or the woman, right? So dharma, which the bucket of actions which is rooted in this Stritva, this womanhood, and therefore are unique to women and facilitate them to overall well-being, is referred as Stri Dharma. Therefore, when women are align their life to this Stri Dharma, one, they are no longer denying their womanhood. They are not pursuing utopian genderless identity or a masculinized identity for themselves. See, the whole goal of if you study the feminism in the West, the trajectory, or even in Indian discourse, you will understand the utopian goal is basically a genderless identity or a masculinized identity for women. But contrary to this, when you understand womanhood, Stri Dharma anchors a woman in her Stritva, makes her realize the importance of it, the greatness of it, the beauty of it, the purity of it. So when when an individual anchors her life in the Stri Dharma, then it means that she is no longer running away from her gender identity, no longer running away, but she does not want to escape her biology, but instead she self-respects herself, her own biology, and she wants to celebrate her biology, celebrate her womanhood, and all that it entails, including menstruation. Therefore, when you locate menstruation within this framework of Stri Dharma, it implies that there is a recognition that menstruation practices uh, are not just practices; they are Rajo Dharma. They are also the actions which are dharma. That is, they are the actions, they are the full-fledged practice of dharma which imparts punyam or karmic merit. That is, the actions which can lead one to sukha, happiness, swarga, heaven, and moksha as well, eventually. Therefore, it's a sacred process in itself. Though the practice of Rajaswala Paricharya is in itself a austerity, a tapas. And we will see this in some detail in the coming slides. Now, more details of it are in my book, but to put it briefly, if you review Hindu textual landscape from Vedas, the Smritis, the Puranas, Kama Shastra, Ayurveda, and all these texts, then it reveals a multi-dimensional and multifaceted approach to understanding menstruation. So only when you combine all these multifaceted narratives, only then you will get a comprehensive, more meaningful picture. So what are these different dimensions? The one dimension is Ashaucha, which can be roughly translated in English as ritual impurity. The other dimension is self-purification process. So menstruation as ashaucha, menstruation as self-purification process or self-purifying process, menstruation as tapasya or austerity, menstruation as a state of rest, menstruation as a celebration, as a sacred celebration. So we are celebrating this Ambubachi festival from today. It is a celebration, and all these dimensions, they are complementary to each other. So they are not contradictory. People will say, "Oh, how can you say menstruation is impurity and as well as purification process?" Right? They are contradictory. Actually, they are not, and we will see how. Because we need to then understand what this ashaucha is all about. See, when we listen to the English term impurity, there is a lot of negative connotations associated with it. So all these internet videos and memes, they're dealing with the English term impurity, and their narrative therefore goes on the slippery slope. They always eventually end up saying that, oh, they are calling menstruating women, the women during periods, as impure. Oh, so how insulting this is. How disgraceful is this? They are degrading women. The Hinduism degrades women. Hinduism looks down upon women, considers them as inferior, as impure, as shameful. See how this narrative is built. All this is based on a single word, impurity. And this is an English term. And if you trace the uh, historically, if you trace where is this idea, this negative connotation of impurity as a moral degradation, as shamefulness, as something which makes, if you call somebody as impure, that means they are something inferior, something degrading. Uh, where is this moral connotation coming from? If you historically trace, I've traced it in my book, you will see the roots of it is in Abrahamic, the Semitic religious theology, especially of Christian theology. It is not something I am making it up, but it is what it is. If you English is the language of the Western culture, and Western culture has its basis, has its anchoring in Christian language, Christian religion. So, if you study there, you will see the Christian narrative against menstruation. They called it impurity, but even the Romans, etc., had a notion of miasma, which can be translated as impurity. But there also it was a ritualistic impurity, more of a ritualistic impurity, and not much of a moral connotation. But when it came to Christianity, they used the Greco-Roman concept of miasma, but they theologically reinterpreted as per their biblical theology. You know, the Bible has the story of Adam and Eve, the Eve eating and making Adam eat the forbidden apple in the Garden of Eden. So they were cursed, they were removed from the Eden by God. So the first sin, the original sin. So they say this original sin manifested as menstruation, and it's basically the punishment for the original sin manifested as these monthly periods. So this notion of sinfulness associated with menstruation comes from this original sin committed by Eve in Christian theology. Therefore, they say that women, when they undergo periods every month, they are undergoing that punishment. They are partaking in that state of sinfulness, that sin that Eve committed. So there are a lot of theological things. We won't go there. That's not needed for that. But suffice to say that this English term impurity and its association with moral degradation, the negative association, has its roots in Christian theology. It has nothing to do with Hindu theological understanding of menstruation. The Sanskrit term is ashaucha, which can be roughly translated as ritual impurity. without the term with having any kind of moral connotation that the biblical theology imputes upon. So in the Hindu case, there is no moral connotation. Then what is it? Let us take a step back and understand there are many Sanskrit terms for menstruation, and one of the term is Rajashrava. Shrava means flow, Raja means blood. So during menstruation, of course, there is a flow of blood from the body. Therefore, it is called Rajashrava. But at the deeper level, Raja also means Rajas, Rajasic energy, Rajo, Guna. So there is a flow of Raja all there also. So this is the hidden key to understand the Hindu perspective of menstruation. In the Hindu, in the Vedantic, in the Upanishadic teaching, we are not just a physical body. The physical body is called as Annamaya Kosha, only the one outermost layer of our identity. We are also made up of the pranic level. There is a Pranamaya Kosha, that is Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana. See, all these Pancha Pranas that manifest in the physical body, they form their own layer, that is Pranamaya Kosha. Then there is the Manas or the mind, which is called as Manomaya Kosha. There is intellect, which is Vijnanamaya Kosha. And then there is Anandamaya Kosha. So when we say Jivatma, Jivatma is made up of, associated with all these 5 koshas. But for our purpose, what is important is the 3 koshas, the lower koshas, which is the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, and Manomaya Kosha. See, these are what we directly and very significantly connected to our biology and our psychology, etc. So when we speak about Rajashrava, the Sanskrit term for menstruation is Rajashrava. That means there is a heightened condition of Raja. Raja is flowing out of the body at the physical level as blood. At the level of Pranamaya Kosha, there is a heightened Rajasic energy, heightened state of Rajasic energy. There is the Apana Vayu is very much active from an Ayurvedic perspective. Apana Vayu is very much active during the the periods. So the Rajasic energy is being removed, the excess Rajasic energy. So the texts say that when the body, when the female body, every month it prepares the woman for pregnancy in case there is conception. So there, during that time, lot of Rajasic energy is built up in the body. But when the conception does not happen, these excess energies are also removed. So there is a heightened state of Rajasic energy at Pranamaya Kosha, and at Manomaya Kosha, heightened condition of Rajoguna. How do we know Rajoguna? And all women know this subjectively. You don't need any text to tell you, because during your periods there is lot of women, large section of women experience mood swings. There is more irritation. You don't feel good. You cannot concentrate. You experience severe pain. The pain is also distracts you. It keeps you hyper. So these all things keep happening if you have experienced it first time. So that is the that is caused by the imbalance in the Rajoguna, in the heightened condition of a Rajoguna. Now, what is this Ashaucha and Shaucha? So we have to understand Ashaucha, we have to also understand Shaucha also. So this Shaucha, Ashaucha also can be understood at all the 3 levels, the physical body level, the Pranamaya Kosha level, and Manomaya Kosha level, right? But what is this Shaucha? Shaucha and Ashaucha, they are not just about ritual impurity. There is a deeper meaning also. Of course, there is a notion of impurity definitely there, and we will come what is this notion of impurity. But there is also, more importantly, there is a corresponding element called as competency or incompetency. Shaucha, if something is designated as Shaucha, that means that action you are competent to perform that action. Shaucha imparts competency to perform a particular action. So, in our case, in our discussion, when we speak about Ashaucha is opposite of Shaucha, incompetency, ineligibility, unsuitability to perform a certain action is Ashaucha. In our case, the actual where the major focus about Ashaucha is incompetency to perform Vaidika Agamika karma. That includes, doing puja at home, doing japa, going to your puja room in your home, or going to temples, going to some such samskaras and such ritualistic places. So all these are prohibited, so to speak, or not advised, because there has to be certain competency to do this. That competency is shaucha. Lack of this competency is called as ashaucha. So what is this competency? So what is this shaucha or competency to perform Vaidika and Agamika or any other kind of activity? For example, at the physical level, hygiene. So we always, when we go to temple, outside the temple, we wash our legs. Even though we would have had a bath at home, we wash our legs and go inside a temple. Similarly, at home, when you sit for a puja, you have to take a bath and then sit for a puja, right? So that is at the physical level, you have to be clean, bodily clean. At the level of the pranas, there should be a balance of the pranas, especially the rajasic avastha should not be there at the pranamaya kosha. Similarly, at the manomaya kosha level, there should be calmness of the mind. There should be a sattvika avastha and not a rajasika avastha. So in the yogic text, they say the chitta, the mind, can only do the ekagra chitta. The mind can become one-pointedly concentrated, which is needed for any spiritual activity, puja, meditation, whatever it is. That one-pointedness, the ekagra chitta, it can happen only when there is no distraction in the mind. When the mind is calm, when the mind is not afflicted by the rajoguna, when the mind is rooted, anchored in sattvika bhava. So that satvikta then is the condition of shaucha. That shaucha then means in this context that sattvika bhava, where there is calmness of the mind, there is balance of the pranas, and at the physical level there is hygiene, cleanliness. And this condition, this state of a person makes one eligible to perform these Vaidika, Agamika, these spiritual, dharmika activities. The opposite then is Ashaucha. What is this Ashaucha? As, at the physical level, Ashaucha means a state of uncleanliness. So what is happening during menstruation? There is a continuous flow of blood. You may wear a pad, you may wear a tampon, but they are not blood stopping methods, right? You should not even stop that. That leads to a lot of medical issues. Now we have take drugs, take these tablets, and postpone your periods. They have severe consequences on the health of the woman. But anyways, so these pads, etc., they are blood managing mechanisms. They're not blood stopping. So there is a continuous flow of blood. So that is ashaucha at the physical level. If a person has an injury also, even that is also a kind of ashaucha because there is a flow of blood there also. But what is different here is the blood, the menstrual blood which flows during periods is a special kind of blood. It is not just a simple blood, but it is also associated with, it also carries, it's a carrier of rajasic energy, the excess rajas in the body. So this shrava of the excess rajas indicates that there is not a balance of the pranas. And we already know from Ayurveda that the apana vayu is in a heightened condition. So there is ashaucha in at the level of functioning of the pranas also. For a proper adhyatmika process, you do puja, japa, yoga, whatever it is. What happens is, we at the pranic level, we are trying to push the apana vayu. Normally is a downward going vayu, but through the spiritual activity, we are trying to push apana vayu upwards, so that it moves upwards and join the prana vayu, and that is how this kundalini awakenings and all are made. That is very far away kundalini. But the fact is, during menstruation, apana vayu is specifically moving downwards in a greater magnitude for the purpose of facilitating the periods, the biological activity of menstrual discharge, because it is also a period of purification. The Ayurveda says the ama, or the toxins from the body, is also removed, right? So there is a heightened condition of apana. Therefore, there is ashaucha as that is at the imbalance at the pranic level. I already explained imbalance at the mind level, right? There is rajoguna. There is no calmness of the mind. So therefore, because of this, the menstruation is called as ashaucha. What does it mean? Therefore, ashaucha simply means, in the case of menstruation, it is defining. It is a designation used to define the condition of a woman, that she is in a state of heightened condition of rajas. She is in a state wherein there is a heightened rajas in her physical body, in her pranic body, and in her mental body. As simple as that. There is no moral connotation, but there is a ritualistic implication of this. What is this? The ritualistic implication is that because of the heightened state of rajas in her body, physical, mental, and pranic, certain actions becomes unsuitable to her, and she becomes unsuitable to perform certain actions. See, it is both ways. Some actions could be harmful to her in that case. Therefore, they become unsuitable for us. For example, Ayurveda says during her periods, the women should not do excessive work, excessive physically tiring work. She should not run, she should not exercise too much, she should not swim. See, all these are shown in today's ads as freeing women from the clutches of menstrual taboos. But these are very unhealthy practices which can, if sustained way, if it is practiced over a long period of time, they can have negative consequences on the women's health. So certain actions becomes unsuitable, and she also becomes unsuitable to certain actions. Like I mentioned, to do a puja or any Vaidika, Agamika karma, Dharmika, Adhyatmika karma, you have to be physically, mentally, pranically, you have to be in a Satvika avastha. So that is the only when you do that, only when you perform this puja, japa, etc. in Satvika avastha, only then you are capable to attain the fruits of that practice. But if you are in a ashaucha, that is, if you are in a rajoguna avastha and try to perform it, you will not get that benefit. You may get some negative side result also. That is what it means. People becomes unsuitable for certain actions. I hope you are able to appreciate this, because this is a very important aspect of confusion. I see that it is already 5, and I'm very far away from completing my presentation. Okay.
That's fine. Please carry on, Nitinji. No problem at all.
Yeah. Thank you, Anshuji. So that is about ashaucha. Ashaucha can translate it as ritual impurity, but here it has no moral connotation, no degrading of women, no looking down upon her. It merely is a designation which says simply that she is in a state of heightened condition of rajas, as a result of which certain actions becomes unsuitable to her, and she becomes ineligible for certain actions. It's simply as simple as that. Now, Coming to the second aspect, which is self purification. What does menstruation purify? Why do we hear that? What is this purification? We have, again, at the physical level, at the level of pranic, pranamaya kosha, and also at the level of karma, actions, we can understand. At the physical level, it is very obvious, we all know. Menstruation removes the menstrual fluids, the blood, the vaginal secretions, endometrial tissues, and all those things. Ayurveda also says, as I mentioned, that the menstrual blood helps to remove the accumulated toxins in the body, dama. We already discussed the pranic impurity, also the pranic level, the rajasic energy which was accumulated in the body in anticipation of pregnancy, they are removed, and a balance to the tridoshas are restored in the body. What is interesting and what we come to know from the Smriti Shastras, the Manusmriti, the Vashishta Dharma Sutras, and other Smritis, including the Vedic Taittiriya Upanishad and other, sorry, not Upanishad, the Taittiriya Samhita and other Vedic texts, is that the menstruation also play a very, very important role in removing, in purifying women of uh, adharmic actions also, or rather uh, the dosha or the fault arising out of adharmic actions. So in Manusmriti explicitly says that the menstruation purifies women of her impure thoughts. So we all know that when we speak about action, normally we think about bodily actions. Like I walk to school is an action, I play cricket is an action. But action is not just that. Uh, we speak about manasa, vacha, deha, manasa, vacha, kaya, manasa, vacha, right? So action through the body, that is the swimming or murdering somebody, these are actions to the body. When you speak through words, that is action through vacha, vachika karma. Like if you abuse somebody, if you scold somebody, if you speak bad behind somebody's back, if you speak untruth, all these are manasika adharma. And there is also at the mind, if you think bad about somebody, if your friend, if you feel jealousy inside your mind, see, all these are the adharma of the mind. Now, Vashishta Dharma Sutra says that the women become free of these vachika adharmas that they unintentionally perform in their everyday life. See, all of us sometimes unintentionally speak wrong things, speak bad things, speak untruth. So when the intensity is less and when it is unintentional, sometimes somehow it happens. Those kind of things, the women become purified automatically through menstruation. Similarly, mind is like a monkey, we cannot control it. There's a lot of kama, krodha, lobha, all these vasanas and rishat vargas working in the background. So these women have this unparalleled means of purification through menstruation, which automatically purifies women from the fault or the karmic demerit generated by such impure thoughts. However, uh, this does not mean that somebody is continuously doing adharmic things and they say, oh, I will become free of it just by menstruation. No, it is not like that. But there are two other interesting aspects also. In the Veda itself, we know about, we have Vritra, we have the Indra story. I won't go into story, but basically the Veda says that when this biological process happens, every month, a egg is generated in the body of a woman, adult woman, and there is an anticipation of conception followed by pregnancy and mother. So at the deeper level, every month a woman becomes capable of giving birth to a potential jiva, bringing a potential jivatma into the physical universe. So there is a potential each month. But when the conception does not happen, then that potential is cancelled. So that potential goes to waste, you can say, or rather that potential, that jivatma which was waiting to manifest, waiting to get a physical body so that it can continue its journey, its journey is abruptly stopped. As a result, there is a dosha, there is a karmic demerit which is generated by this natural process that happens in the biological level. There is a karmic demerit that is generated by. What is the solution to this karmic degenerate? Solution to remove this karmic demerit? The Shastras say that the Upanishad, the Vedic, the Samhita, etc., themselves note that it indicates indirectly that this menstruation, the monthly periods, purifies women of that fault, of that karmic demerit. That karmic demerit generated by the non-fertilization of the egg, it frees women from it. Therefore, this menstruation has to be treated as a very sacred process, as a very important, the purifying process in itself. And from the Vashishta Dharma Sutra, we find another very, very important thing. It says that if a woman, if a have become unfortunate victim to sexual assault or rape and such things, she need not fear. She can purify herself. She becomes purified when she gets her next periods. So here you may ask, what is this purification or it is being spoken? See, experiencing sexual assault, etc., is not something a man can even describe in general. There is a lot of trauma associated with it, feelings of dishonor, feelings, the great mental trauma, and many such emotions associated with it. So, what the Vashishta Dharma Sutra is indicating is, we know from history that lot of women committed suicide, unable to deal with this trauma. So, Vashishta Dharma Sutra is saying, don't fear, don't take that extreme step. You have this unparalleled means of tapasya, unparalleled means of purification, unparalleled method with you, a spiritual, a dharmic method with you. If you perform, if you wait for your periods, and if you perform these periods as a rajo dharma, then all this trauma, etc., you can overcome it through this tapasya called Rajaswala dharma. Because tapasya is a means to get rid of every kind of trauma. When people are in depression, they many often take refuge in in spirituality, take refuge in austerity, right? Because austerity, tapasya, etc., is a great means to free oneself of the trauma. So Vashishta Dharma Sutta specifically says this. In this way, menstruation is considered as a self-purification process. And in the Bauddha Dharma Sutra, there is a very interesting verse which says, women possess of an unrivaled means of purification. They never become entirely impure. For month by month, their temporary uncleanliness removes their sins. Sins here means karmic demerits. In short, women's entering a temporary period of ritual impurity or ashaucha during menstruation does not make her inferior or impure or whatnot. It makes her ever pure. We have Vashishta Dharma Sutra, which says this explicitly. Women are pure in all her limbs. The Soma, the Gandharva, the Agni, they impart women cleanliness, melodious voice, and purity in all limbs. Here, Soma refers to the moon, and we know connection of the moon with menstruation, right? And also, the Soma, Gandharva, Agni, they also indicate purification at the physical level, at the level of the speech, and at the mental level. See, Soma is also connected to mind because moon is connected to mind. And Agni is the presiding deity of the speech. So, in this way, we have to understand menstruation purifies women at physical, speech, and mental level. And this is something uniquely available to women. Men don't have this special method. To get rid of the same kind of karmic demerits that men accrue to themselves over course of everyday activities through their body, through their speech, through their thoughts, they have to perform lot of activities such as samskaras, the japa, nitya karmanushtana, nitya puja, sandhya upasana, so many other things. So what comes by special effort to men comes as part of natural process to women. So menstruation is a healing process, is a self-purification process for women. Other dimension is tapas. I have already mentioned here. Tapas. Tapas implies dharma anushtana, as I mentioned. Rajaswala Paricharya is called as Rajo Dharma. Therefore, the very activity of the very menstrual, the periods itself, but also the lifestyle practices surrounding periods that are given, they are a package of dharma anushtana. So you perform that, you attain better purification, better healing, but also get rid of the uh, karmic demerits at the physical, mental, and level of the speech. It also gives you great punyam, karmic merit also. It gives you indriya nigraham. See, lot of these aspects of the Rajaswala Paricharya, such as, um brahmacharya, sexual abstinence, no makeup, no anointing oneself, no sleeping on the bed, no sleeping during daytime, no combing the hair. See, all these are meant to uh, develop detachment in the body, develop indriya nigraha, control of over our mind and the senses. So women have, in general, have have more affinity to beauty, to comfort, all those things in general. We all know this, you all know this. But austerity, the during the menstrual period, during those 3 days, you are putting yourself in a state of tapasya, wherein you voluntarily uh, give up all these things, all these comforts. This helps to control desire and develop detachment, develop vairagyam, develop indriya nigraha. So therefore, it is a tapasya. Similarly, it is state of rest. We know from Ayurveda that, I already mentioned how women should take as much rest as possible during menstruation, because not taking rest, involving lot of physical activity, is very very harmful to our health. Now coming to the last element we discussed, the last dimension, which is celebration, a sacred celebration. So why celebrate menstruation? The very first reason is, of course, the deep connection to of menstruation to childhood, childbirth, and fertility. In fact, the whole menstrual cycle is a biologically, it's a facilitator for motherhood. While coming of menstrual periods every month indicates that there was a non-fertilization of egg, therefore there was a karmic demerit. But the very existence of this periods and the cycle is to prepare the body of a woman to conceive children, right? It is what makes her, facilitates her to become mother. Therefore, across the communities, across Indian geography, but even in many other cultures also, there is a menarche ritual. In Sanskrit, we call it as Ritukala Samskara. Unfortunately, the practice of the Samskara has greatly vanished from the urban pockets, from the large geographies in northern India, western India, to some extent in southern India also. What was a very great, what was done with huge fanfare, a huge affair. It was like a half marriage before. Now it is a very small function among many families, and many are also not doing it. But it was at one time across the geography of India, east, west, north, south, across all the different communities, castes, and all of them celebrated their girl children's Ritukala Samskara. They celebrated this transition phase from Kumari to Kanya in great meaningful manner. And interestingly, this Ritukala Samskara has parallels with Upanayana Samskara for Dvija boys, or other transition puberty rituals in other communities also, wherein it implies growing up, entering a adulthood phase. So in a pre-colonial society, we did not have a category called teenager. We had a child and we had a grown up, only two categories. And there is also a parallel to Upanayana in other sense, that after Upanayana Samskara, the Brahmachari is able to practice Sandhya Vandana, etc., through which he can he will enter into a ritualistic life system, and he achieves purity, etc., purify himself through the Sandhya Vandana. The women, the girls, through her onset of menstruation itself, there is an automatic purifying process called this periods. But she also enters into a ritualistic system in a sense of Rajo Dharma, practicing Rajo Dharma every month. So menstruation makes a girl eligible to enter Grihastha Ashrama eventually, facilitates her to perform Stri Dharma, including, you know, entering marriage, entering motherhood, all of which unique to them. So celebration, therefore, the Ritukala Samskara and other celebration imparts a positive perception of menstruation to the young girl. She is welcomed with open hands into womanhood. She is told that this is something auspicious, this is something celebratory, this is something sacred. Make her appreciative. They receive his menstruation and Rajo Dharma associated with it in a positive manner, not as a taboo, not as a shamefulness, not as some burden from which she has to run away. And in this context only, we also have great festivals. We celebrate our Shakti, our great Bhagavatis in her different forms associated with menstruation. During Navaratri, we worship Navadurgas, Shailaputri, Brahmacharani, Chandaganta, Kushmanda, Skandamata, Katyayini, Kalaratri, Siddhiratri, right? Mahagauri. So these are the Navadurgas. We worship them during our Navaratris. Especially Parvati or Durga and her forms are associated with menstruation, motherhood, etc. As you can see in the presentation, Shailaputri and all the first five forms of Navadurga are associated with five stages of a woman's life. So basically, all these forms, all these deities can be considered as presiding deity of those stages in her woman's life. Shailaputri is a child, Brahmacharini is a Kanya. She has entered Brahmacharya, so to speak. Chandraganta is a marriage. Kushmanda is pregnancy. Skandamata is motherhood. We are now celebrating, today starts the Ambubachi festival at Kamakhya. There are Raja Parba. As the name says, Raja is menstruation. Parba means festival, which happens in Odisha, wherein Harachandi Devi is worshipped. Bhumi Devi is also worshipped. The Kedesa is a festival in Karnataka among Tulu speaking people, wherein Bhumi Devi is said to undergo menstruation once a year. There are a lot of similar Devi temples in the south, also in many other places. Just like Kamakhya, they are also considered as undergoing menstruation once a while. In case of Kamakhya, it is yearly. In the case of Kedesa festival, also it is yearly. But that may not always be the case. In one temple in Kerala, every few months once, every day the sari worn by the mother in the temple, the murti is examined, and once every few months red spots appear there on the garment, and then for 3 days she is kept in seclusion, and it is considered as her periods, the Devis. And on the fourth day, she is given a bath in the nearby Kalyani, the river, and then she is brought in great celebration. And this is a Utsava, this is a great Utsava similar to this Ambubachi festival in Kamakhya. So this is how there is celebration at the level of the woman herself in the form of Ritukala Samskara, but there is also celebration at the cosmic level of our great Shaktis, our Bhagavati, in different forms undergoing menstruation. So there was an anthropological study which I had quoted in my book. The women in Odisha were interviewed. They said, we menstruate just like our devis. Our menstruation is an imitation of our Devi's menstruation. Therefore, through this menstruation, we are also partaking in the universal, in upholding the order in the cosmos. See that perspective. So this celebration, it is not a superstition, it is not a blind belief. It is the understanding of our Sri Dharma, and Dharma means upholding, not just at the individual level, but also as a Rita at the universal level. So we have a statement in the Hindu philosophy, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. What is at the microcosmic level, same is at the macrocosmic level. At the microcosmic level, an individual woman menstruates every month. At the macrocosmic level, the Bhagavati herself, who is the Shrishtikarta, who is the Sthitikarta, who is the Layakarta, she also menstruates. And through such menstruation, the cosmic Shakti at the universal level, the individual woman, the Stri at the level of the individual, they both uphold Dharma, they both facilitate the sthiti, the sustenance of this universe. It is this holistic, wholesome understanding in which the the Hindu perspective of menstruation is to be understood. Contrary to this, contrary to how Hindu Dharma perceives Hindu menstruation as a positive, austere, purifying, healing process, and encourages women to celebrate it as a sacred celebration, which imparts extremely positive experiences, subjective positive experiences to women, and makes this undergoing the pain, etc., during menstruation worthwhile, because it is seen as an austere process, as a sacred process, as a purifying process. Contrary to this whole thing, contrary to this connection between individual uh, woman undergoing periods as a part of Sri Dharma, as a part of cosmic order, upholding cosmic order as an imitation of the cosmic Bhagavati undergoing menstruation. As contrary to this, the modern scientific narrative rooted in Western cultural views, etc., it has reduced menstruation to a purely biological phenomenon. You see the contrast? The Hindu narrative, the Hindu discourse, the Hindu understanding does not negate biological aspect. Rather, its cultural, religious, theological understanding is rooted in the biology. The biology itself is rooted in the cosmic rita, in dharma. But in the contemporary, the modernist, the scientific narrative, it completely makes the menstruation, deroots the menstruation from any sacred dimensions. All the non-physical aspects becomes a superstition, and menstruation is reduced to simply the biological phenomenon such as pain, cramps, unavoidable physical process. Menstruation is an unavoidable physical process and annoyance to overcome through drugs, etc. Modernity posits menstruation as a purely biological phenomenon from whose enslavement a woman must free herself from drugs, tampons, and sanitary pads. How do we know that this is the view? Take the example of popular sanitary products, Stay Free or Whisper. Or in America, there is a similar product called Freedom. So, what is this freedom? From what should women achieve freedom? We already saw menstruation is an inseparable part of her womanhood, her stritva, her femininity. So, freedom from menstruation means freedom from her femininity, her identity as a woman. That means it freedom, freedom to become, freedom to masculinize one's identity, or freedom to attain some sort of gender neutral identity. You see, that is really a denial of biology. By reducing the narrative about menstruation to purely biological terms, there is also a denial of biology also, denial of identity also. And this whisper, what are they whispering? Is not the whisper a kind of evidence that they're inducing shame, the feeling of suffocation towards menstruation? So these are the underlying deeper psychological ideas then that these ads, that these memes are communicating. The traditional women were shy to speak about menstruation, but they were not shameful. The contemporary academia misunderstands this shyness as shamefulness. If we were really shameful, why would we celebrate Ambubachi festival? Why would we celebrate our Bhagavati as undergoing menstruation? Right? The obsession with this particular so-called scientific biological narrative of menstruation has basically alienated women from their own bodies and bodily experiences. It has prevented women from discovering a positive meaning to this process as part of their self-discovery. All cultural knowledge, all subjective experiences have been reduced to belief systems, superstitious beliefs, etc. And harmful practices have also been promoted in the name of science, such as ads showing wear this sanitary napkin, then you can get a gold medal in swimming or running and whatnot, right? Uh, I just before concluding, I just want to highlight. Often the questions asked is there is lot of practices. Rajaswala Paricharya, Rajo Dharma is too complicated. We cannot practice everything. That is true. We are leading a contemporary life, fast-paced life. There are a lot of contemporary challenges. But there are certain things that at least that are definitely that can be practiced. If not all, at least some of them, many of them, you may not be able to practice all of them all the time, but you can practice some of them all the time, and most of them some of the times at least. So if I have to make a list, first is the food related habits, especially that Ayurveda texts highlight, that is definitely can be practiced. Avoiding junk food during periods, avoiding non-vegetarian foods during periods, avoiding heavy foods during periods, eating home-cooked simple food during periods, eating with your fingers rather than metal spoons or forks during periods, using try to avoid metal utensils during periods to keep food or use the the box and all etc. These are possible, practical, even if you are a corporate job working person, consuming less amount of food. Sexual celibacy with respect to sexual intimacy during the 3 days of menstruation is also very much possible. Sleeping, not sleeping during the day, or avoiding sleeping on your regular bed, instead sleeping on a mat or a charpai, is also possible. It may be little bit difficult in the beginning, but it is not impossible if you really want to do. Again, for working women, avoiding taking a full bath etc may be difficult, but they can find alternatives. Not taking a head bath at least, instead of a full bath, using some using sponges etc to clean themselves. See, especially the Ayurvedic texts mention this, not to take a full bath etc, because the bath etc can cause imbalance in the doshas, which can lead to some health issues. But what can be avoided, if you are at home, at least you can avoid makeup and anointing yourself, taking a body massage, or using of your colorium and combing of the hair, cutting of the nails. If you are at home, you can avoid all of them fully. If you are working woman, at least some of them can be avoided, or some of them, some lighter alternatives such as applying a light makeup during those periods. Not cutting the nails can be definitely avoided. And if you are combing also, uh, combing in a lighter manner, having a hairstyle which does not involve too much combing. So these alternatives, creative alternatives, can be discovered, can be experimented with. One thing is physical work. It is very very important to take physical rest, avoiding physical and mental exertion. Mental rest, not stressing oneself, is also equally important. Avoiding running, traveling, too much cooking by standing, etc., or cooking itself, household activity, any kind of fatigue work, mental, physical, all kind of fatigue work should be avoided. Ideally, one should, working women should take a day or two off from office if possible, or at least take to work from home options if available, and try to maintain some sort of seclusion also, to so that the mental stress is not there. See, when you are too much into in your day-to-day life, we get all kinds of stresses. So the one of the reasons for this seclusion, partial seclusion, was also to allow women to have some sort of distraction less, stress-free period, stress-free rest also. That is also the criteria for austerity also. And religious activities, of course, definitely possible for everybody. Don't do any spiritual or religious activity like japa, dhyana, meditation, puja, visiting temples, including yoga etc. There may be certain yogasanas which are useful for menstruation. I am not sure. You have to learn from a proper yogacharya, but otherwise in general, because yoga also is physically straining work, it should be avoided. Bhagavan Krishna in Gita says, even doing a little bit of dharma is very, very fruitful. So all these elements, even if you implement some of them, it will give great benefit. So before completing, I just want to announce about my new book. Uh, Anshuji already announced it in her introduction. Its title is Chatushloki Manusmriti, an English commentary. It is a book which examines, though it only examines the first four verses of Manusmriti, it is a very important gateway to help one to make sense of what exactly is Dharma, what is the purpose of Dharma, what is the end goal of Dharma, why there is a genre of text called Dharma Shastras, why do we need those texts. It also removes a lot of misconceptions and propaganda about Manusmriti which is prevalent. The book is available on Amazon India and Hindu eShop and other places. Please check out the book and read it and share it with your friends, etc. Thank you very much. This is my email ID and my handle on Twitter or X. You can follow me or you can write to me if you have any specific query, etc. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take some questions. We have some 20 minutes to 6. I'll need to leave by 6 so I can take some questions in the next 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Shri Guru Brahma.
Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद नितिन जी, and शुभकामनाएं to you for your new book. And I would open it for questions with a very relevant shloka from Manusmriti itself, which you were referring to, I'm sure, during your course, which was Bhasmana Shuddhayate Kasyam, Tamram Amlena Shuddhayati, Rajasa Shuddhayate Nari, Nadi Vegena Shuddhayati. So the purification and the detoxification process that we talk about, that is something which is mentioned in the very text which is being regarded as something which is very anti-women, or look at them in a very disgraceful way or so. So this is just a window or just a glimpse into that. So before I request the audience for any questions, just very quickly I will share what in the last slide what Nitinji shared in terms of what are those do's and don'ts, which are very practical and relevant do's and don'ts that you can follow or you should follow. That is exactly something what we explain one by one in the Rajaswala Paricharya knowledge capsule in the course itself. And the 3 on 4 which he rightly focused upon are the one which is about not taking a bath, the reasons behind that, even from a physiological point of view and everything, because the body temperature is heightened. All those are explained. So, not taking a bath, sleeping on the darbashaya, not cooking. And that, the recent meme that I was talking about, Nitinji, was it's actually around cooking only. And similarly, not engaging in physical work, including yoga, and even for that matter, even pranayam, because the prana, particular prana, the apanavayu, is the most active. So you're not supposed to disturb its course. When you do pranayam, you're essentially trying to balance all of them. So that is the reason these have to be avoided. In fact, yesterday only we released our last session's, the video recording, where we focused on how to normalize your periods using Panchamahabhuta, which include the yoga and pranayam, but they are to be done when one woman is not menstruating. So during menstruation is the rest time, and I think which what the learning for me personally has been, Nitinji, the beautiful simile that you drew, or this you show us that the Ritu Kala Samskara is the equivalent of the Upanayana. I think that is a there is like somewhere it was a missing link that I had, and I thank you for bringing it up. So with that, I would open it, to our viewers. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask Nitinji. He's here for another few minutes, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. If later on, if you have, he has shared his email ID. I hope you've taken a note of it. You can ask him, as well as in case you're part of Rajaswala Paricharya course, you can also ask in the community, and we'll ensure that we take it to Nitinji. So if someone has a question, they can raise a hand, and we'll bring them to, basically open their mics. Neha, I would need your help in case someone raises a hand. Please give them the mic.
Sure, Anshul.
So if you have any of you have any questions, please don't hesitate asking. It's a very detailed book, the deep study that has been done, and the I mean, we always call it as a very logical and a reasonable dharmic purview that we have for everything, and that is just a matter of for us to understand it better, so that then we can actually follow it with all conviction. So, if you would like to ask, please do. So I believe, Nitinji, it was a very detailed session, so that all the questions I think kind of got automatically asked. Usually the questions that we have are around the apprehensions and this the certain kind of shame which is associated by one openly declaring that I accept and I understand the practices that we have, and then also finding the the reasons behind them, associating them in the bigger context of what our dharma is, and for a stri the stri dharma is. So this blind race to become equal to the masculine, or become masculine in the process, is something we definitely need to avoid. And I think your recent book, in fact, the Jatashloki Manusmriti, is also something I'm sure which will elaborate on the which elaborates on the same point also, is to not be shameful about the the dharmic stand that is taken by dharma. We do not classify it as religion only. It is the, as you very beautifully explained, what dharma means, and then taking it to the stri dharma and then the rajo dharma itself. So, with that note, I would like to once again thank you, Nitinji, for taking out time for sharing such beautiful wisdom with us. And we hope that we get more opportunities to share some more wisdom from you. With that, I would thank all the participants also for listening in. The recording of the session will be available. You can come back to the same link. It will take 24 hours for it to update. It will be available for you to see and view. You can always come back and refer to it as well. So thank you everyone for your time. बहुत बहुत
Thank you.
धन्यवाद.
Namaste.
जय धन्वंतरि.